Okay. So yes, we did meet. We met first time at the meetup in London about, was that 2 months ago now?
Yeah.
And you gave a presentation on the growth media, the so animal-free growth media, which I suppose there's been quite a lot of change since then, hasn't there, in the world of growth media. I saw Omeat, their new plasma-based growth media called Plenty.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that one.
Oh, have you not seen that? So it's
No.
yeah, that was just that was just a couple of days ago. So
Oh, okay. You made me curious. Now I'm going to Google it
yeah,
so that I can learn
you
more
should.
about their media.
Yeah, well, I was wondering whether you would know about that, being in the, yeah, have a quick look. Have you heard of Omeat? Have you heard of them as a business?
Actually, not really either. So they're a bit, they might be newer.
Well, they've been quiet apparently. You know,
Ah,
it says in their
yeah, because there's
article
a
that
lot of companies like that. They just go in stealth mode,
that's right.
and then they only launch, yeah, almost like unexpectedly.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So they're Los Angeles based.
yeah. So they might be at the conference that you're going to, perhaps.
Potentially, I mean, especially if they're based in US for sure,
Yeah.
because the Good Food Conference is very big. I mean, I've been to the Good Food Conference in 2019, and back then I think there were about 700 or 800 attendees, which was crazy. But apparently since then it's got even bigger. So now they're expecting, yeah, over 1,000 people attending this conference. And I think what was really great about the Good Food Conference is that it's not scientific. It's a bit of everything, right? And it's open to the general public as well that is interested in learning more about, alternative proteins and this field. So it's not just for the scientists or academia or industry, it's for everyone. And there's loads of investors, well, potential investors there. There's media, loads of people from media. There's academics, but even normal people. Because I remember I was talking to a group of ladies, and they had no scientific background whatsoever, but they were interested in nutrition, and they were interested in in learning more about foods in general, and learning more about alternative proteins and plant-based foods and so on. So I thought that was very different to the type of conferences that I would normally attend, like an academic. But I actually found it quite informative.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many days is it over then? Is it a whole
It's
week?
3 days. Yeah, three
Yeah.
days. I think, if I remember, starts 18th of
Yeah.
September, 19th and 20th, but
21st.
then 18th is only in the evening. I think there's like an opening social event, and then the actual conference with all the panels and talks is 19th and 20th of September.
So you will be giving a presentation there
Um,
as well, will
so
you?
Well, I'm actually on a panel, so I'm going to sit on one of the sessions on a panel. So I'm not doing a presentation per se, but I'll be on a panel with other people, other specialists. So the panel is all about how do you go from bench top to a business. So how do you translate research to something commercial, or something with impact. So they kind of want to learn about my experience as an academic, and how I managed to found Quest. So what was kind of my journey into getting into that, and then try and identify what are the current needs to get this, to get this to happen more often, because it's not let's just say it's not something that academics are very good at.
No, it's not what
So
you expect
yeah.
to be doing, I suppose, is it? So,
Yeah, I mean
and I-
it's a different kind of language. That's what I'm finding it, right? So academia is so different from a commercial setting or a business setting. It's almost there are different challenges, but I think it's all about being able to see the potential of the research that you're doing and how you can translate that. And I mean I do recognize that perhaps, I don't know how it is in other parts of the world. Some universities are better at this than others. Yeah, the majority of universities, perhaps they're not really doing enough to train their academics into learning these aspects of how you can translate that research to a commercial setting. So, I mean, you don't even need very specialized training, but you need to understand IP, you need to kind of recognize potential. Yeah. So, I mean,
yeah.
I know I was terrified, to be
And so,
honest.
and so the company that you've started up called QuestMeet, that is with a couple of other academics, is it? Or
Yeah, so
yeah,
it's I mean, and I guess this is the reason why I launched myself into this entrepreneurial opportunity, because I had the confidence of going into it. So when we funded Quest, I was in talks of actually spinning out from the university. So myself and Ivan Wall, who was a professor at the university at the time, and now he's the CEO and one of the co-founders of QuestMeet. So we were talking about spinning out, but the discussions just took forever. So then we had another opportunity where we were approached by two people that had the experience in setting up a business, and they also had the experience of running a business. So one of them was a co-founder, and the other one was used to be the chief executive officer, the CEO of that company. So when that happened, that in a way to me gave me confidence that, you know, we are not going to lack these very critical skills in funding a business, because we have them, and then they have us on the science aspects and on driving the science. So yeah, that was the only reason I literally you know, I did this. Otherwise I don't think I would have been comfortable in funding my own startup, you know. I mean, it was a very scary thought, because I am you know, I come from a pure academic background, so we don't do that.
yes.
Yeah, it's
It's
very
a big
unusual.
step to make. So
Oh yeah, for
and so
sure.
you're working, you are a doctor at the university, and you started up QuestMeet. When did you start that up? Just a few years ago, right? It's quite new.
Yeah, so at the end of this month, on 31st, is going to be 2 years.
Okay. And what do
Yeah.
you do there at QuestMeet? Can you just sort of give us a little
Yeah,
outline?
sure.
Yeah.
So I am well, one of the co-founders, but I also play the role of chief scientific officer. So I drive the science behind what we do at Quest. And I guess my job, as in probably as in any startup or small business, my job doesn't just focus on the science, it focuses on everything. So there's an element of managing the people in the lab. There's an element of actually going and being hands-on in the lab, doing experiments and, you know, making decisions on different things. There's an element of operations, so thinking about what we need, setting up licenses if we need for the different aspects of research that we're doing, or I don't know, health and safety, all of that. So I'm kind of doing everything that's really needed. And then on top of that, meeting with investors, with our CEO, with Ivan, presenting at conferences, you know, or events, and kind of explaining what we do at Quest, talking to other businesses for collaboration. So it's pretty much a little bit of everything, but the science is the major bit that I'm responsible, I'm driving.
Yeah, and that science is around animal cells and growth media. Is that right?
Yes, and more.
And more.
So basically, yeah, so basically Quest is a B2B, so it's a business to business, has a business to business type model. And our mission is to support the cultivated meat industry by providing ingredients that could help make the cultivated meat products affordable and sustainable, because obviously that's the only way that you can reap all the benefits of these novel foods. And we do need to think about long term, of course. So yeah, so what we do specifically at Quest is that we work with food grade ingredients, and we've identified one in particular which is very versatile in the sense that through different ways of processing it, you can make different products out of it. So one product is the media formulations that you mentioned. So that's serum-based media, serum-free media, serum-free media. So we're trying to replace serum through our ingredient. Another product is microcarrier replacement. So to grow cells, usually you would have to have them attached to something. So we call that an attachment substrate. And a lot of the techniques that are used in the production of cultivated meat come from tissue engineering and cell therapy. So what you would use as an attachment substrate is these micrometer, so very, very tiny particles, like think of it like grains of sand. They literally have that same texture. So those are generally made of polystyrene, which is plastic, right?
Okay.
And you grow the cells on them in these fermenters, in these big like bioreactors. So, you know, like the beer kind of brewing vessels, it's similar to that. So you would grow your cells attached on those, but actually those are made of plastic, which means that there's a chance that you can, some of those things can escape into your product. So obviously there's a safety risk. No one wants to eat plastic, right? Even though we're probably doing anyway, but
yes, I suppose it would be hard to remove that once the cells have
yeah, so there's additional steps. It's not impossible, but actually all those additional steps they contribute to that final cost of manufacturing of these products. And as I said, some of them will slip through, so they will be present in the final product. So obviously those type of microcarriers, those type of attachment substrates, they're not really fit for purpose. Yeah, not for this application, not for foods. So what we do at Quest is that we can process this ingredient into something that we call a microcarrier replacement that basically acts the same way, right? But it's food grade, and actually it can contribute to the taste, well, not the taste, to the texture of the product at the end. So you don't even need to remove the cells from these. You can just leave the cells in and make it a part of your product, of your final product. Yeah, so that's one of the other products that we have. And we're also looking at processing this ingredient into something else, something like a coating. So when you culture cells in small scale, so not in these fermenters, on the bench scale, let's call it that way, you have to use these tiny flasks. But for some cell types, like the muscle derived cells, you need to use the protein coating, but that tends to be pretty expensive, and again it comes from animals, right? So ideally you want to minimize the use of those animal derived products. So this ingredient that we have, we can process it to form something similar and use it like a coating, but it's not animal derived. Yeah, it still has the proteins and it will still help the cells attach, but it's without the detrimental effects of animal Yeah.
Okay. And so that's a coating that goes over the cells, did you say?
No, so the
It's
coating goes over the flask and then the
over the,
cells go on top. Yeah.
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, because it basically what it does is like think of it like this cushion. So it helps the cells attach and stick to it.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
stick to the vessel.
it's a lot more involved, I suppose, than kind of lay people like myself are aware. So and so you have four main products then
Yeah,
yeah,
categories of products. Yeah.
categories. And you are and part of your agenda, I suppose, is to remove animal products entirely from the process. Is that
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
as
So
much as possible?
ideally that's what we're aiming for. Because we are thinking of sustainability in the long term. And animal derived products, they come with a series of question marks when it comes to sustainability because of obvious reasons. So what we are trying to do is replace all of those components, but our aim is also to make them lower cost than what currently exists, right? So if you think when you're producing cultured meat, if you're putting something expensive at the start of your manufacturing, of course you're not going to get something cheap at the end, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
you have to have something that's lower cost at the start so that you can get that low cost that we need with these, because at the end of the day, we're trying to make a food. We're not trying to make a
It's
cell
not
therapy.
it's
The
not
cost
farmer
doesn't
grade
matter in
stuff.
cell
No.
therapies because it's life, but
Yes.
for foods it matters.
Yes, I remember in the presentation you gave, you were talking about the growth media kind of costing, was it 11,000 a liter or up to 11,000 a liter? Was that right? I can't remember exactly. What was it? But it was you were saying how expensive it is to use the kind of bovine serum, the calf
Yeah. Yeah,
bovine
so
serum.
the bovine serum is, the prices have skyrocketed in
Right.
these past couple of years. I think it's, in a way, it was perhaps expected,
Mm,
with all the issues now and with all the discussions. And I think even in terms of regulations surrounding fetal bovine serum, those has tightened up quite a bit.
mm.
So obviously, yeah, that will have an impact on the cost. In the long term, I don't think it's sustainable. One, because of the cost, and second, because it comes from fetuses, right? From bovine fetuses. So
Yeah.
there's those ethical issues
It's
around
not a
that.
good way of selling the product, is it? Because
Yeah.
it's
It's
kind of
it's very effective though, very effective. And
yeah.
currently, because there aren't really, there are companies that are working in the cultivated meat space that are working on developing serum-free media formulations, like us. There are others as well. But currently there's nothing really on the market yet that's commercially available that performs really well.
Mm,
So it's still this, we still need to use fetal bovine serum at this stage for
mm.
any sort of research that you do until something becomes available, or until, us as Quest come up with a formulation that we think is really good and that is ready for commercialization.
And are you able to talk about your products? I know that there's quite a lot of secrecy in these sort of closed door experiment lab stuff. So I remember you mentioned at the presentation mung beans, algae, and worms.
Yeah.
So are
Yeah.
these
So actually, that's something that we do at UCL, at the university.
right?
So not at Quest.
Oh, I
Um,
see. Okay.
yeah. So that was one of the projects that we have at UCL. It's a PhD project actually that's looking at um, different components that again are sustainable. So those were some of the categories of food grade powders that we came up with that we thought might be good candidates to test to see if it works. Yeah, and particularly faba bean, which is it's something that could sustainably be produced in the UK. So the focus was specifically on the UK. What could we do with, you know, with the type of plants that we have accessible to us in the UK? What could we use to try and see if any of this could work? Yeah, so it was actually a very interesting experiment that my students did to try and look at this. And they got some really interesting results. It wasn't quite, well, it still needs more work, obviously.
Okay.
So it wasn't quite comparable to serum-based
Okay.
media. It
Okay.
wasn't anywhere near as good as serum-based media, but it wasn't killing the cells either. So that's a first step in, you know, in looking at something that you can still maintain the cells without killing them for, I don't know, a short period of time. So yeah, so that's something that my student has taken forward and now is trying to figure out other ways of processing those type of powders to see if we can make it better, right?
Okay. So your work at Questmeat, are you close to having a product that is comparable to the serum?
Yes. So I would say potentially next year in what is a second quadrant, I think we will have something that would be commercially available. So we have a formulation that we found that works really well. Now it's all about making sure that we can test it with the different cell types and making sure that in long term it also works, because I think sometimes this is the trouble. You can get it to work for a short period of time, but then actually if you do prolonged culture, you find out that the cells get modified. So so this is what we're working on now, and then obviously doing all the testing, thinking about the commercialization aspects of it. But I think next year in the second quadrant, we will have something ready for commercialization, which we're super excited about.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it must be interesting that because there's so many companies around the world now who are, like you said earlier, in stealth mode, and until they sort of feel like they've hit the jackpot. So we've got O Meat that I mentioned to you earlier, and then company Remeat, they said that they've also got a formula. And what do you know about their formula? Do you know, is this something? No, is it?
Nope.
Nobody knows.
No one really knows anything about. I think the only media formulations that are public, they come from Mozambique, as they patented them. So there are patents available, and they've also published. Yes. But everything else is, no one knows anything about anything. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
which is understandable, because, you know, being such a new industry, IP is so important, and there are still debates onto how is best to protect your internal IP, right?
Okay. Okay, and so in your fourth product are the animal cells themselves. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? I mean, where, you know, how do you get the cells, and where are they taken from?
Yeah, sure. So another product of Quest, which is what we are currently commercializing, actually. So these are on the market, and we've already sold to several clients, both in the UK and internationally, are the cell lines. And we currently have bovine cell lines. So anyone that's interested in doing cultured beef, or even any other type of research on bovine cells, they can access our cells. So these are cells that are derived from muscle, but we have two types of cells. So the way we chose the types are, well, particularly relevant to the cultivated meat space. right? Because if you think about meat, it's a mixture of muscle cells, but also fat cells, right? So what we chose were cells that come directly from tissue that have the ability to form muscle and to form fat. Okay. So we have bovine myosatellite cells. These are the muscle forming cells. And we also have bovine adipose-derived stem cells that can form the fat that you would need for cultivated meat. Okay. We have cells from bovine, from cattle, but we also have different breeds of cattle. So we have Aberdeen Angus from several donors. It feels odd to call them donors, but it's, that's what they are, from different animals.
Yes. And of course, the animals are not harmed, right?
No. So actually, the animals are already committed to the food chain. Okay. So they go through slaughter. Yeah.
Okay.
So the tissues that we get actually come from a slaughterhouse. We have a connection with them, but those animals are already committed. Okay. I think it's quite difficult to, I don't know how it is in other places, in other countries, but it's quite difficult to get tissues, so biopsies from live animals. You need a lot of approvals, a lot of licenses, and you need to work with a veterinarian.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, so you can't, it's not as simple as you go get the animal, you see an animal on somewhere, and then you just go and take the biopsy. It's not quite like that. It's a lot more complicated. But I think in the long term, ideally, you wouldn't want to slaughter the animal, right? Because that's the whole point. But for now, it's what we kind of have to work with.
Okay, so I don't know whether you ever saw, but the company, I think it was Enough or Good Meat, I can't remember which one, but they showed a video and they discussed how they had taken their cells for chicken from a feather that had fallen from the chicken, just in the course of its life, and then they could grow the chicken from the cells taken from the feather, and then eat the chicken meat while the chicken was kind of walking around happily afterwards.
I don't really believe that.
Oh, you don't believe that, really?
Nope, no.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
No. I mean, a feather is a feather. So the cells have almost like a memory of the place where they come from. So I mean, just to kind of give you an idea with the bovine cells, right? Because you would think, well, yeah, Aberdeen Angus or whatever, British Blue, what difference does it make? There's the same cell type, right? The same muscle forming cells. What could be different? But you can't be more wrong, because actually every single one of these cattle breeds, they look different, right? In real life, if you put an Aberdeen Angus and a British Blue next to it, you can see very obvious differences. Some are
one has a lot more muscle, I suppose, right?
So actually what we found at Quest, and this is what we're now currently working on getting a publication out, because we think this is going to be very beneficial for the industry to have this knowledge. We found that the cells from the more muscular breeds are actually a lot better than the ones from other breeds that don't have the same characteristics.
I'd imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger would agree with you there.
Well, he had to work for it, right? I mean, humans really have to work to build their muscle, but actually some breeds, some cattle breeds, they have been bred genetically, and they have genetic traits that actually allows them to naturally produce more muscle, right?
Right.
British Blue is kind of the equivalent of Belgian Blue. So I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of that, but they're like the hustle, the of cattle, right? They're huge, they're so muscular, but
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
reason for it, because they have this genetic trait to it.
Is that not steroids that they get given? Is
No,
that in their
I
cells?
don't think so. No,
Right. Okay.
no, it's just it's a genetic modification within the animal that allows them. Yeah, so they've been modified essentially. They've been breeded to be able to produce that amount of muscle.
And so their
Yeah,
cells
so
grow
we have
easier.
that. We have the equivalent of that, which is the British Blue.
Okay. And so their cells grow easier
They
in the
grow faster.
faster.
They grow significantly faster, and actually they form more muscle as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions that I want to ask, but how did you get into this industry in the first place? What drew you to the world of cellular agriculture?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, how, just to kind of go back to where I come from. So I was an academic at Aston University. And one of my postdocs at the time, she came from a nutritional background, and she was very, very interested in nutrition. So she was the one that back in 2018, when all of this was very, very new, she introduced me to the concept, and she said, well, because her postdoc was coming to an end and she needed a next step. So she said, well, will you support me in putting in an application for a fellowship? And there's this grant funding opportunity through a charity that's based in the US, which was the Good Food Institute.
Okay. Yeah.
And she said, well, let's put something together. Let's put an application in, and it will be about cultured meat. So we've put this application in, and we got it. We got the funding from the Good Food Institute.
Yeah.
We were, we were we were the first in the UK to get funding from the Good Food Institute. And actually, that was the first round of funding that they ran. And it was open for, globally. It wasn't just for the US. So that's how we started a project in the cultivated meat space. And actually, I think the more I learned about this concept, the more I found it fascinating. And the scientist in me could see all the opportunities for innovation, right? Because there's so much potential. But then I absolutely loved the fact that it will be about making meat, so making something that comes from an animal, and you wouldn't need to slaughter to kill that animal for it. I found that absolutely amazing, because I love animals. I have 2 cats of my own, and actually, believe it or not, when I was young, I had a pet chicken, and I loved her. I absolutely loved her. And and my parents decided to kill her one day, and they made soup and whatever else. And I knew, I think I was only 5 years old at the time. And I absolutely refused to eat that food. And my parents just didn't understand why. So, because I
Maybe
come
that's
originally from Romania.
how you
So,
got into the industry. Maybe
yeah, so I think
back
it
as
was
far as that.
that. And,
Yeah.
I absolutely loved the science behind it, the innovation potential for that, and the fact that in the end, in the long term, you're basically doing something that potentially has a very big impact, right, on animals,
Absolutely.
on the way we do things.
Absolutely. That's why, I suppose that's my draw to the industry as well, because it seems like the only viable solution to a pretty kind of brutal reality that might be coming around the corner. If we don't create this industry, then it's just going to be kind of factory farms with kind of horrible lives for millions of animals. So yes, it does seem like the best and only solution. And how long do you think it will be before it becomes viable, before like scale up? First of all, before it's possible to create meats without using any animal products, perhaps apart from the cell itself.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about the very recent milestones, right, for the industry, which are huge, and that's the two approvals in the US with cultivated chicken products. Well, I think so. Upside Foods, they've made, I can't remember where exactly I saw it, but in one of the articles, they said that their product will initially be available in a Michelin star restaurant, which I think in a way is kind of a interesting approach to it, maybe smart approach, because it kind of gives that experience.
It's the only possible way, isn't it?
Pardon?
I said, I suppose it's the only possible way because it's still very expensive to make. So
yeah, it is quite expensive, but they said that they are expecting that within 3 years their products will be low cost, well, cheap enough essentially to be available in supermarkets, or more of a maybe slightly higher end supermarkets,
like Waitrose.
Yeah, so I know Upside, they already have their facilities and they can produce this at scale, but it's just bringing those costs down. And my understanding is that their FDA approval for commercialization is currently still based on FBS, so on serum used in the media. But actually, they're working on their own serum-free media formulation to try and replace serum, and also to bring those costs down, because at the end of the day, the media is the main cost driver for the manufacturing. And I think because companies like Quest and Multus, which you might be aware of in London, and a lot others in the world are working on media formulations, I think there's a very big chance that those costs will come down significantly. So fingers crossed those products come on the market, because I think at the end of the day, that's what will help.
Okay, and of course they would have to reapply for permission once they kind of change
my understanding is not. My understanding is that they don't have to go to the whole process again, but what they can do is make an amendment to their process, so only certain steps will be reviewed.
Okay. And of course, we also have Aleph Farms applying for permission.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's actually a big milestone. That was quite unexpected, I have to say.
Very unexpected, because they've applied in the UK, Israel, Singapore, and Switzerland, but not in the USA. So which I thought was quite.
I think in a way I can kind of understand why. Maybe because they're waiting a bit longer to see what happens with their applications here in Europe. And actually going for Switzerland, I think, was quite clever, because that will give them access to Europe, to the European markets as well. So I think that was a very smart move for sure.
But why
Let's see what happens?
Why the UK, do you think? Have you had any dealings with the FDA at all?
Are you sure they actually applied for the UK? Because I don't know. Are you sure they've applied for the UK? So I know I've read about Switzerland and Singapore and obviously Israel, but I didn't know.
Well, their announcement that they made, their announcement was the UK and Switzerland, and I contacted them to ask them.
Oh, did you? Okay. I didn't know about UK, so I knew about Switzerland, and at least that's what I've seen in one of the posts.
So interesting. So we'll see what happens.
I guess in a way is because UK doesn't belong to Europe anymore, right? And to be honest, UK is a good market, and I think the view of consumers in the UK, because I think people are very open, right, to novel foods, or to adjust their diets. I think people in the UK are probably a bit more conscious about environment, about animals, so they are willing to take that extra step, of
Okay.
And it's actually quite interesting as well, because I was talking to my contact at the slaughterhouse that we work with, and he was saying that throughout the years, he's actually noticed a significant decline in the number of animals that come to them for slaughter, which
Okay.
obviously kind of implies a lower demand for meat in the UK.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. I think people are more open now to plant-based diets, or at least,
The
maybe
younger generation.
flexitarian. Let's call it flexitarian or pescatarian, or yeah.
Yes, I think the younger generation certainly are moving away from it.
Yeah.
There's the stragglers at the top, but yes, I mean, kind of vegetarianism and veganism is normalized now, whereas kind of 20 years ago,
Yeah, and
it was
actually,
kind of
even if if you go into supermarkets and you look at the shelves, I mean, a couple of years ago, like maybe 3, 4 years ago, there was one tiny shelf with maybe corn and another plant-based.
yeah, yeah.
And now it's a whole aisle of,
It's
products.
a massive industry, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and they've
And they got a lot better as well.
yeah,
The taste, I mean, they taste so much better, so much nicer, don't they? So it's
absolutely.
like, I like to call them the third generation products, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
usually they always start as being quite, yeah, I'll try, but and then they get better and better, and
Yes. Well, I have an interview with the CEO of Rebellious Foods in a couple of weeks, and they have a new chicken product which they say is indistinguishable from from chicken. It's called Mac 3, I think.
oh,
The Mac
okay,
2. So
interesting.
so we'll see. They were going to send me a sample, but apparently they can't get it to me, which is a shame. So
Oh,
it'll be on the market soon. Listen, it's really been great talking to you, Petra. It's good to sort of see you again and chat, and I hope we can stay in touch.
oh yeah,
Um,
for sure. Lovely talking to you, Alex, as well.
Good, and have a great time in San Francisco.
Oh, thank you.
How long are you going to be in America for? Are you going to kind of have a
I
bit of
think
a
about
holiday while you're there?
maybe 6 days,
Okay,
something like
okay,
that. Yeah. Was
okay.
I'm actually looking at flights now. I need to book them today. I haven't booked anything yet, which is a bit
Okay.
a bit
Well,
late minute, but
okay, well, great, and hopefully at some point in the future, I might get an invitation to San Francisco. Oh, I wanted to ask you actually about the Good Food Institute while you're here. I mean, they are. I don't know what you know about them. I've had some dealings with them, and I'm curious to know where they get all their money from. Do you have any idea?
my understanding is that it's all donations.
Really? I
Yeah,
mean,
so they're a charity.
who's?
So they're a non-profit. So basically
Yeah,
everything they do comes from donations. But I think because they've done absolutely amazing, and they've grown significantly over the years, because they were
yeah,
funded in 2017, I believe. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, so I think because they've done such a great job, they do get a lot of donations.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you haven't heard anything about kind of, big donors behind the scenes, like sort of, like the likes of Jeff Bezos
No,
or
I
anything
have
like
no
that?
idea. I mean, I don't
No,
think that's public.
no,
Yeah,
no.
public knowledge. No.
I was just curious, just because because they have offices all over the world, and they seem to be kind of spending a lot of money. And
Yeah, well, I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of interest, and the interest has been only growing, right? I mean, you can see
mm,
you can see how much is growing from the number of companies as they've
yeah,
grown over the years. I mean, in
yeah,
2016, I think there were only 4 in the whole world.
yeah.
And now they're, yeah, just on the
Well, there's loads of
cultivated
them.
meats, I
Yeah,
think they're probably close to 200.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so
I've heard from one of my sources that Jeff Bezos will be investing over £1 billion into European funding for cultivated meat. So
it's
which
good.
which is which kind of puts the UK 12 million to shame slightly, doesn't it? But we'll
Yeah,
see.
but then you do have to consider that these 12 million come from the governments.
Yeah,
So I feel, you know, I'm actually, I'm actually grateful that they even put this in, right? Made this available. Actually, there was, so this was one of the government funding, which is obviously quite significant. But then there was a lot more through funding just for businesses, for different businesses through the Innovate UK scheme. So there was actually a few calls recently that provided this type of funding for this type of research in the alternative protein space. So that was good. That was good to see. At least we know stuff is happening, right? Things are happening, and at least we know there is some support from the government, because a couple of years ago there wasn't anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a lovely bank holiday weekend.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much. You too, Alex. Take care.
Thank you, Petra. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.